So you've written your introduction, and in that you've set out the line of argument that your essay is going to take. And so I want to spend some time now just looking at the main body of each paragraph and thinking about what level of detail you need to be really successful at A level. So here's an example of a title and an introduction from a past student. Just like with the introduction slide PowerPoint that you've already looked at, I've stranded out. The red is where they are identifying their key term, and the blue is one line of argument they're introducing, the green is another line of argument they're introducing. This time I've also underlined some key words, which I'll come back to when we look at the main body of the essay in more detail. But these are words which kind of show you as a kind of a literary critic, you are exploring meaning and coming to some judgments and establishing a debate. So those underlined words are really nice little words and phrases that you can use to make your writing more successful. So just like in the introduction PowerPoint presentation where you created a mini plan, I just want to remind you of your argument so far and the work that you've done and how your introduction can really help get that very clear pathway, that stepping stone through your essay. I've gone back and looked at this student's introduction, and I've looked at, therefore, how I can take the strands of argument that are being introduced there to form the main flow of my essay. So I know that I want to do something on, yes, these students do conform, and I need to obviously explore in my essay how. And my two key ideas that I've got, and I've gone back to my plan that I've already done and spent a long time thinking about to identify the two key ideas which are presented to you here. But I also know that this is a debate. It's to what, kind of like how far do you agree, to what extent. So I am going to say, well, actually, they don't always conform. And again, I've got my how. Well, they question and they challenge. I'm also very mindful of my kind of mini plan for my structure of my argument, that because this is a how far do you agree, it's not an equally weighted argument. There is going to be more evidence on one side, and here you can see actually there's more evidence to support the view than there is to challenge the view. So that's also going to help me think about kind of like how many paragraphs I'm going to have for this essay too. So from your introduction, what is it that you are claiming that you're going to be talking about in your essay? And can you create yourself some subheadings to structure this argument? When I write essays, and I always advise students to do this in their first, even their second draft, is actually to have the subheadings at the top of each paragraph. So I can make sure that they are absolutely sticking very tightly to that very clear line going through. So that might be something that you want to do when you start writing yours. These subheadings are also helpful because they also help with your topic sentences as well. And this is all very vital because of these strands of the mark scheme. So I'm taking you through now band 3, 4 and 5. I refuse to do anything lower than that. Band 3, the key criteria for writing at that level, at A level, is that you are clear and you are relevant. So that very clear introduction, that very clear logical structure, how your argument is going to progress in your main body of your essays, how you demonstrate this in your topic sentences is absolutely vital to getting at band 3. And this is kind of typically C grade students. Band 4 and Band 5 are obviously progressing in more detail, and that's more to do with the depth and the rigour of your analysis in your paragraphs. So when we look at 2 example paragraphs, I'm going to show you a Band 4 and a Band 5 one, and hopefully sort of talk you through the differences of them, but also kind of give you an insight into the detail that you need to be putting into your writing in order to move from Band 3, clear and relevant, where you have that very clear introduction, you've got a clear line of argument going through your essay, yes I agree, no I don't, in the example that we've just seen, and you've got moments to talk about in relation to that. How can you move on from there? But you can't be Band 4 and Band 5 if you haven't got those very clear topic sentences first. So here on the next slide are examples of what topic sentences actually look like. These 3 openings are the openings of the 3 paragraphs that were the main body of this student's essay. You've already seen their introduction, and you've sort of seen my mini plan of how I think the argument ought to be presenting from the structure. Yes, they're going to agree with conformity, and they have one idea to do that. They're also going to agree with conformity and provide another idea. And finally, they're going to challenge. There is a however, it doesn't always happen in this way. And you can see that that's exactly what I get from this student's essay. The opening one is for the the first paragraph, they're agreeing with conformity, and this is why. The second one agrees, but it's not just this. This also supports it as well. And then the third one is their however, their challenge for the debate. So what they've said in their introduction, I'm absolutely getting very clearly, very relevantly for Band 3 descriptors in these topic sentences. This is an essay that flows together well. What I also think is something for you to be mindful of in terms of your topic sentences is how the first topic sentence, and then obviously the paragraph that follows, the second topic sentence, the second paragraph, references back to the first paragraph's discussion and then moves it forward. Structures like this are called Janus type sentences. And that might be something that when you start to write your essay, you want to be thinking about to get real fluency between your paragraphs. These paragraphs are working together to create a really convincing argument. They're not standalone. So think about how you might reference what you have already written very briefly, and then how you're going to move your argument on forward. So working further from the students' topic sentences, here's their very first paragraph following on from the introduction, and this is a brilliant example of a paragraph that falls into Band 4 criteria. Very coherent, very thorough. So I'll pause the slide, read it through yourself, and then I'll talk you through what I've highlighted and underlined to try and help you make sense of it, and hopefully help you think about what your paragraphs ought to be doing when you're writing about birdsong. So welcome back. Hopefully you've had a read through. Now, again, I appreciate that you don't know Never Let Me Go as a novel at all, but I wanted to talk about a text that wouldn't advantage anybody in terms of covering content that you yourself would be writing about. However, you can steal all of the ideas to make sure that your writing is going to be of a suitable quality. So firstly, in terms of the blue that's highlighted on here, this is where as a marker I'm seeing that this candidate is absolutely answering their question. You can see it in the opening line, they're addressing key part of the question. That comes to two other points within the main bulk of the paragraph, and they end the paragraph by commenting on the question as well. So for that coherence, for Band 4, we absolutely have that. This is somebody who is absolutely focused on what it is that they are being told to or being asked to write about. Where does the thoroughness comes in? And this is where my other colour coding helps, but thoroughness is the other criteria for Band 4. Thoroughness comes in part with the parts in yellow. You are being asked to apply the critical anthology. So all of the moments in the yellow are where I know that this candidate is addressing the Marxist viewpoint, which is what they're choosing to write about. There are direct quotations from the critical anthology, means of production, which would be footnoted and put at the bottom of the essay. There is language which places this within the realm of Marxism, reification, bourgeoisie, for example. I'm also very aware that this candidate, and this comes in with the section, a Marxist reader conscious of how any education system is designed to create passive subservience. This is some wider reading that they've done. They haven't quoted the wider reading, but they've used it to inform their own understanding. They've done some extra research into education and Marxism because that wasn't within the critical anthology, and they've taken that on further themselves. So this is somebody who's been very thorough in their approach to the critical anthology. They're also being thorough in their approach to using the novel to justify their claims. So anything which is in this sort of pinky purpley colour is where they're directly using references from the novel. Band 3 candidates tend to just have one moment which they talk about. Going beyond that, you are ranging more widely around the novel. And this can be quotations here. We've got 3 individual words that are being used and working together. They've seen a pattern of language, and they're using that to support one view. The fourth quotation here, what they are supposed to be doing, the bit in the brackets is where this writer has adapted the quotation slightly to make it flow with their own writing. But what they're doing there is using a quotation to support their line of argument. So this isn't one they're analysing, like they analyse donations and complete and special, but they're using it to kind of make their conclusion. Towards the end of the paragraph, we don't have direct quotations, but we have the student referencing specific moments in the narrative, which also help to show a thorough moments. So we have individual quotations that are being analysed, and we also have moments that are being commented on and explored, all of which to explore their point of view. That's thorough. We've also got that lovely language underlined again, which shows you as a critical writer. I'm suggesting this is building up my argument. In addition, I think this. All of this is sort of creating a really fluent piece of writing. So really, really credible paragraph, a really strong, coherent, convincing piece of writing. It's not quite band 5 because there is something kind of missing from the end. So on the next slide is going to be an example of a band 5 paragraph. You'll notice a lot of what we've spoken about here, but some additions as well. So this is one just for you to read, and then I'll talk you through key moments myself. There isn't colour coding this time because it wasn't possible in terms of how this is being presented, but this is somebody's final piece which has been marked. So pause the video, have a read, and then restart when you're ready. So this essay is all about narrative gaps and how they the significances that existed. So it starts off with our clear topic sentences. Yes, there are narrative gaps in here. These are some meanings this is one meaning that I've identified, and they go on just to explain this in a little bit more detail in terms of how the narrative is structured. So that sort of is the opening few lines, defining the term and establishing the example that they want to talk about within the novel. They then go on to talk about the novel and some specific moments as to how the gaps are created. So we've got some quotations from the novel, and then we've got the analysis of the effect that they have, which she links in with the critical anthology. And here we've got a quotation from the critical anthology to show this connection. We've got this building up though, and they're exploring more meanings. In part, this is achieved. However, this also happens. So because this is a significance essay, they're not doing a for and against, but they're looking at, well, here's one way of understanding how narrative gaps are being used, and it can create this effect, but it can also create this as well. And because we've got another idea being introduced, another area of significance, which all sort of ties together with this first key point, we've got some more moments in the narrative of the novel to explain why they think that is the case. From here, from this creates the power, this is all the kind of the analysis happening again. So they're really kind of moving. They're incredibly thorough here in terms of they're thinking about the moments of the novel. They're absolutely rooted in the critical anthology. They're exploring a possible meaning, but also thinking this same example could create a different effect as well, which is starting to kind of move them to the very top end of thoroughness. It's not just thoroughly explaining one point, but actually being open to see that it could be also interpreted in a different way, that very same example, and this is what it is. It moves into assured and perceptive, however, by the end of the paragraph. They end in a different way to the paragraph that we've looked at before. They really start to focus in what the writer is hoping to achieve here and how it ties in with the writer's key messages. Now, because this candidate is writing about narratology, there isn't a critical viewpoint and a critical reader here. It's just how an individual reader takes this. So if you're doing Marxism or feminism, you would absolutely still focus in on the writer, but you'd also be thinking about, well, what messages would a feminist or a Marxist reader take away from this? And you can see that she ends with the message that runs through this. So you're thinking about the bigger picture. We've also got all of the beautiful rhetorical flourishes. I'm noticing firstly as something that I would want to be using in my writing. This is created by, this means that we are, these disorientate, in part this is achieved by, however, for example, this creates power, however, this allows Ishiguro. We've got that repeated twice. I perhaps should have noticed that when I was helping edit this piece, but never mind. And then reading on to kind of a message that runs through. We've got all of this language that's showing me as a marker that this writer is thinking, is interpreting, is building up their interpretations all of the time. And that's what I would hope your writing for Band 5 would be doing. So finally, there is no one right way to write a paragraph. However, there is an expectation that these features that I've bullet pointed here will become part of every paragraph that you write. This could almost be a bit of a checklist for you as you are writing to make sure that you're on track. Obviously, you've got your essay to write. Leave the conclusion for now. I'll do conclusions after I've read your first draft, but I want you to be clear on what your argument is and what you're thinking before you bring it all to a close. And we can't really do that until you've done at least one draft. So very best of luck. Work hard.